Okay, it's 4 p.m. on Thursday, August 10th, 2017. We have a quorum. Barely, but we have a quorum. So I'll call this New Ulm Public Library Board meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Everyone should have a copy of it. Any other additions, Chris, or corrections?
No.
Okay.
I so move.
So I have a motion to approve the agenda. I have a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Second item of business is the approval of the minutes from last month's meeting on July 13th, 2017. Everyone has a copy of that in their packet, and hopefully everyone's had a chance to read through it. And I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the July 13th, 2017 board meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Now up, we have the introduction to and of TDS Executive Director Ann Hawkinson.
Hello, thanks for inviting me to come and tell you a little bit about myself and about TDS. So TDS stands for Traverse to Sioux, and we're the Traverse to Sioux Library Cooperative. My name is Ann Hawkinson. I'm the executive director of that office. I'm fairly new to the position. I joined just in January. The TDS office is charged by statute with providing services to all of the libraries in the 9-county region, and the New Ulm Public Library is part of that, as are all of the libraries in the county. So when we go to do that work, we consult with the library members themselves to see what kinds of services we can best provide. And a core service that we provide is the automation system. That's the computer system sort of behind the scenes that keeps track of all of the loans and returns and the collections, the patrons, fines, payments, all of that kind of thing is run collaboratively between almost all of the public libraries in the 9-county region. So New Ulm is part of that. It's an effective way to provide that service to libraries. Individually, they could never afford to purchase as robust a system on their own. And it also lets people from New Ulm see all of the materials in the entire region very easily and quickly. So it means that New Ulm Public Library doesn't have to work all by itself to provide the resources for its community. Rather, together we can all work together to do that, and we end up really leveraging each other's resources. So I believe I'm right that there are almost 1 million items in the system. And Chris, you can probably say how many items you hold here.
We're about 81,000.
About 81,000. So you can see that that's just a tremendous benefit to an individual public library to be able to share like that. So we do that. We also do a lot of professional development opportunities for people. Many of our members come from big and small libraries. So if you're thinking about places like Sleepy Eye or Hanska, that the staff are in very rural locations, very remote. They can't always get up to the cities. They can't always take an online class that meets the schedules that they have to do. So TDS has a role in that as well. So again, working with the member libraries, we develop or support classes or workshops on that. Chris just recently took the lead on that and worked with her colleagues to develop a one-day workshop that was held in Mankato just last week, I think, called Camp Read. It was a huge success. We were able to bring together school librarians, school personnel, public librarians, an author, other experts all together to talk about how to best serve the reading needs of children in the area. So that was terrific. Thank you, Chris, very much. Thank you, board, for letting her do that. Working collaboratively is a way that we can really stretch our professional knowledge to all the corners of the region. Are there particular aspects of how we operate that you're particularly interested in? Funding, for example, or maybe other services?
Would you talk to them a little bit about the funding?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to. So TDS is established by statute under a couple different statutes. We serve all kinds of libraries. That's one hat we wear. And we also provide basic system support to public libraries. That's another one. So that's two hats, two pots of money that come directly to us from the state. Then we get some support to provide internet service to all of the libraries in the region, all of the public libraries in the region. So that's yet another pot of money that we're responsible for. We are also part of the legacy funding request that goes in, have been now for several years. We don't know how long that'll continue. Every 2 years they decide if public libraries are going to keep participating, but that also comes down through my agency. So that's another pot of money. So that's 4 pots of money so far. Most of it is state money. And then a very important 5th pot are the member fees. So the libraries that do participate in the automation in that shared computer system do pay a significant part of the cost to operate that system. So that's a check that you write a couple times a year to TDS, and that's where that money goes. Then how we get all of that money then in those other pots of money, we ask the state legislature to fund us. It's written into statute, so we have a base amount, but it hasn't changed in a long time. So it hasn't changed since 2009. The formula has some bubbles and hiccups in it, so that over time, TDS's share of the statewide pot has really gone down. And so this last biennium, we worked really hard to ask the legislature to not only increase the funding, but to also solve that funding formula problem to help us even things out. And there wasn't enough money this year to go around to fund all of the governor's initiatives and solve that problem. So we'll go back. We'll try again. In fact, just yesterday, I was at what we call the legislative forum. Chris was unable to come, or she would have been there. That's when the librarians from different aspects of the profession come together to see how we can best impact state funding for libraries.
Director Hawkinson, could you talk a little bit about your staffing and the kinds of positions that are utilized by TDS, as well as, I believe it was last year, thereabouts, there was some backlog in cataloging, and I understand that everything's caught up now. And just talk a little bit about that process and what procedures have been implemented in order to see that that minimizes the backlog that occurred last year.
Absolutely. So I came on in January, so all I can do is kind of give you a summary of what transpired in the past, but I can certainly focus on what's happened from January forward. So I'll spend most of my time talking about that, since that's what I know most directly. So in the past, there a backlog did happen, so that libraries were sending materials to our office and they were not being returned back to the offices in a timely manner. So what has happened is that we have dedicated staff hours to that process. We changed some staff and we streamlined some processes so that not only are things being kept up, but they were able to clear out that entire backlog. That has another terrific benefit for our members, because now the the department head, the person in charge of all of those people working on that project, she's also now really able to focus on improving the skeleton of the catalog, if you will, the structures behind it, cleaning up things so that it's a better experience for our users. What I mean by that is she now has the time to go through and eliminate bibliographic records, the titles that don't actually have any items, so that if you're looking for a book on dog training, you have things that come up where there are actually books there for you to ask for, instead of maybe a description of something and then in fact no one in the region owns it. So some of those kinds of cleanup that hadn't been done. So she's focusing on that. That means that overall the catalog is much, much cleaner. Our library members are very happy with how fast we've been able to turn things around. And even more importantly, when we were behind, it had created a sort of a cyclone effect, a cumulative effect, in that if Chris sent her new copy into New Ulm and it sat waiting to be cataloged, then Mankato sent in theirs, and then Lake Crystal sent in theirs, and pretty soon we had 3 copies of the same book. And that does not happen anymore. Chris sends in her copy, she gets it back in a couple days. The other copies of that hang right on that super quick. So we're very proud of the progress that we've made on that. I'm very happy to say to you that it's working very well.
Will you talk a little bit now about your staff, how many staff you have working at TDS? And what
Sure,
roles they
sure. We have, I want to tell you an FTE, and I don't know if I can do the math quite that fast in my head, about 8 FTE. Some are part-time, the department heads are full-time. So we have, would you like me to go through by department? Would that be useful?
It's the general category of position titles.
Sure.
Briefly what they do in that title.
Sure. We have an automation department, and that is the department that is responsible for making sure that the software that makes all of the systems work, that actually works. So he's responsible for working with our vendor, which is Sierra III, and making sure that that it is up to date and running and is functional at each of those sites. That's a full-time position, and we also have somebody who is full-time who helps make sure that the computers are running in all of the libraries that need that support. Not all of the libraries use that service. So that's the automation department. The cataloging department, we have one head, and FTE, I want to say, let's see, 2.5 people, so 3.5 people are in cataloging, and making sure that the content that goes into that system, that's what I was describing before, that content is up to date, current, and turning things around very, very quickly. And then we have people then working on the ACHF grants and website design, outreach, and grant writing, consulting, those things, and that's another 4 people.
Okay. Thank you.
You had mentioned that TDS serves all member libraries in a 9-county region. So do all libraries become members, or can they opt out and not have to be a member, but then, of course, they don't get the services?
Right. So the way that works, the way the statute is written, which is what we have to do, is that all libraries in the 9-county region are eligible to join. They can become a member. Membership is actually free, but we don't just get to say, ta-da, you are one. We have to actually go and have a membership agreement that spells out who we are, what what you need to do to qualify for membership. You need to have a collection. You need to have somebody in charge of the collection. You have to agree to cooperate. And then we sign that, and that's the membership agreement. And then we have other agreements that are for the particular services that we offer. So cataloging or delivery, those kinds of things. So all libraries can opt in to become members, and then they can also choose to participate in paid services as well. Did I answer your question?
So
Yeah.
are there some libraries out there that are not members though? Because maybe
Yes.
because of their size or they don't meet the requirements?
Yes, there are some libraries that aren't members. In particular, some school districts have public libraries or have school libraries that aren't, or media center or special libraries like a historical society. I think they're not members largely because TDS wasn't able to reach out to them and invite them to be members. They aren't automatically members. We do actually have to invite them and sell ourselves a little bit to them. So there's that. For public libraries, all of the is this true, Chris? All of the public libraries in the 9-county region are members of TDS. They have chosen to do that. Now we do have a particular a public library that's an official public library by state definition that is not part of the automation system, and that's North Mankato. But that, the way they are set up right now suits their needs right now.
All right, anything else?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to come and talk, and I'm happy to work with you or with Chris on any sorts of issues that would happen to come up. We've got a lot of very qualified staff, and if it comes down to numbers and budgets and spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff, I just eat that up. So,
Thanks.
Thank you.
thanks, Ann.
All right, next we'll move on to the July 2017 financial report and summary. Chris?
That starts on page 7. We are 58.1% through the year. Our budget is about 50.5% expended. Nothing's striking me as unusual. We are going to get a new server room computer that will come out of computer supplies and equipment line. And we are adding a third wireless hotspot just because of the way checkouts have been working. We're seeing some demand for them, and that funding will come out of contractual maintenance equipment. It will be just fine working into that piece of the line item. And I'd be happy to answer any specific questions.
Chris, do you anticipate the difference between how far we are into the budget year and the amount of the budget expended to carry into the end of the year? That right now I think it sounds like there's this little over 6.5% difference in what's been expended versus the period of the year that we're in. 58.1, you said.
Right, and my hope is to have some left over. We went quite a bit over last year because of our major projects with the lights and with the exterior sanitary sewer system. So I would like to build our fund balance up just a little bit. We're at about 40% of our annual budget in fund balance. I'd like to get that up just a bit. And this little bit that we're under at this point gives us some wiggle room. We are okay with our interior sanitary sewer system at this point in time, but we have those kinds of things that we know may arise.
And there was something last month too that we were going to pick up with the general budget, some little amount of money for.
That was the TDS fees.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that hasn't been done yet though, has it?
No, we won't. I haven't received the bill yet for the
Okay.
second half of the year.
Any other questions on the budget? All right, hearing none, then we'll move on to the librarians report and the library department activities report and statistics. Chris?
That starts on page 15. Friends of the Library met June 29th. They approved several donations. They're supporting National Library Card Sign-Up Month initiatives. They're funding 2 programs for National Novel Writing Month in November. Those are projects that April is working on. And they are funding another year of the Wowbrary subscription, and that is $389. That Wowbrary subscription is a weekly e-newsletter that people can register for, or they can see it without a subscription by going to the website, newulmlibrary.org, and looking on the homepage and linking into it that way. It shows the newest items that have been added to the catalog, as well as information about upcoming programs, and April keeps on top of that. Jan Caveney, our Youth Services Librarian, will be at the State Capitol tomorrow for the grand opening. She is going to do a Minnesota-themed story time at 2:45 p.m. And I believe there are several other librarians from TDS, and Anne, I asked her to get pictures. So if you would take pictures, we want to showcase her. That's a real honor, I think, for her to be able to do that.
Now, does she have to get invited for that, or did she just volunteer, or what the?
Well, we got an email that said they were looking for people, and I got the email, and I immediately knew this was right up Jan's alley, and I sent her the email and said, I bet you'd be interested in doing this, and yes, she is. She's going to bring her guitar and a couple of stories. April and Betty Roiger joined the TDS Item Record Standardization Task Force, which is a really fancy name for making sure that behind-the-scenes spine of the catalog is consistent among all the libraries. And so they had a meeting this week, and they came back really positive and energized to do some behind-the-scenes work to make the catalog better, even better, for our users. April joined the Legacy Grant Committee, and that's a quarterly meeting. They look at all of the applications, and they're working on developing a more consistent checklist for how they determine who receives funding. April has been really busy because she's working with the Life Living Speaker Series, the United Way, Allina Health, ECFE, work together to, they're coming up with 3 programs, and that'll be January, I believe. And then Jan did, story time is her thing, okay? She did 24 story times in July and had a total attendance of 638. She also had 10 special programs with a total attendance of 177. She loves story times, and when she said, she was looking at August and had been advised that typically we take August off to take a breath and kind of work on some other things. And she said, well, I'm thinking maybe we should keep doing story times. And then we got to looking at some of the other things that crop up after summer reading. So she is taking August off, but she'll be starting again September 11th. And she's going to add a story time on Wednesday evenings at 6:30. And our library use assessment survey results are on the library's website at newulmlibrary.org. The Traverse de Sioux contracts, there was a draft that came through, I mentioned it last month, that our city attorney did take a look and provided some feedback to TDS. I did not bring these to you at this point. They've gone back to TDS. They're in an updated version that's going to go to the TDS board and then be finalized for us to approve, for you to approve and sign this fall. And I did make one more note about summer reading. There were 945 registrations this year, which is pretty close to our highest ever, with 40% completed, which is slightly down from previous years, but a fantastic summer. Really great engagement with the kids.
So I think I read in there, it said in the past, or going forward, you're thinking of not going by the number of children who originally registered, but versus how many actually participate?
Jan had brought that up as something to consider. April and I have talked to her. We still want to count the number of young people who've stopped in and registered that first day. They still are engaging with the summer reading program and the staff, checking out materials most often or doing scavenger hunts on that first day. So we will continue to count that.
Okay, good. All right. Next up, programming with April.
Afternoon. You have the numbers here for attendance for our most recent adult programs. I'd like to highlight a few upcoming adult programs. On Tuesday, August 15th, we've partnered with the Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services. They're offering a wills clinic at the library. We've partnered with them and helped with the advertising and offering our space. This program is aimed at lower income seniors, and those who want to attend must register with the Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services to make sure that they're eligible for that program. We have a list here of upcoming events for Dakota War Week, and I'd like to highlight a few of those. Dakota War Week is August 21st through 27th, and the library has been involved in planning, advertising, and coordinating these events. We do have some of them that will be offered at the library. A number of them will be offered at the Brown County Historical Society, and we have events at the Springfield and Sleepy Eye libraries as well. The ones that will be at the New Ulm Public Library are on Tuesday, August 22nd at 7 p.m. We're hosting the Dan Hoisington Film Festival. He's presenting 2 new films at that festival, so we're very excited for that. On Thursday, August 24th at 1 p.m., Dave Martinka will be presenting the Dakota War in Pictures at the Springfield Public Library. On Thursday, August 24th at 7 p.m., Glenn Washichina will be presenting The Dakota People Then and Now at the New Ulm Public Library. And then on Sunday, August 27th at 2 p.m., there will be Pioneer Cemetery tours at the New Ulm City Cemetery, and Sue Ullery from the library will be leading some of those tours. Are there any questions I can answer about programming for the month?
I'd like to raise an issue on last month's, under the adult programs on July 10th, the adult book group met to discuss the Handmaid's Tale. Add the sci-fi group was there too.
Oh, I will add that.
I was duly represented. I want to make sure we get that in there.
I will add that. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Vince, I'm sorry, could we go back to number 1? I meant to follow up on the wireless statistics.
Oh yeah, I see that 1A. Yeah, stuck
I'm
in there.
sorry.
Stuck in there. That's all right. We can call an audible here.
Thank you. There was a question last month about how statistics are maintained, and so I talked to our IT manager, Nate Barron, and his response is that he checked the settings on the firewall. Logging of traffic, so the actual sites, is kept only for a few hours in the activity log. The number of block sites, and he called them scans, are kept longer, but he doesn't have details on that. That's not necessarily where everybody's going, typical traffic. The statistics that I need for number of users every month that I use on this new statistics that you're getting. That's kept for much longer. He does not have a specific rollout date or roll-off date, but it'd be probably a year plus that those statistics are kept. And I can see the actual names of devices. I can't access what sites they're going to.
So you're thinking that you could go back a year and look, but then after that it drops off, or whatever time period,
Yes.
plus or minus.
And we've just started keeping track of these statistics in February, so it's too soon to tell exactly when they'll be dropping off, but that's something I can access every month, and I'm able to go back.
Okay.
So does that answer the question, Carl? I believe that was your question.
Was.
Okay, thank you.
All right, now we get back on track with Chris giving us an update on the exterior sign.
Last month, as the chair pointed out to me, I was really optimistic, and I said any day, still any day, any day. The sign is on order, and I'm hopeful when I'm out of the office that it will be here. And I need to tell April, take pictures. We're looking forward to seeing it up there. But I haven't heard an update from Sid Signs about the exact date.
It'll probably happen when you're on vacation.
Probably.
April will get credit for it. And
She should. She should, because Sid's going to come and he wants staff to tell him exactly where to place it. So she will get to decide where it's
ooh,
placed.
the pressure.
Back door then?
Yeah. Make sure it's level, spelled correctly, all that kind of stuff. All right. Next, then, we'll go to the Brown County update with Chris.
And the Brown County Library Board and the 5 public library directors submitted a letter to the county administrator in advance of our meeting on August 21st at 3:30 p.m. Together, we are asking the commissioners to consider a $3,700 increase in funds for fiscal year 2018, and that's a 5% increase over 2017 funds. We have some statistics to share with them. In 2016, about 168,000 items were checked out at Brown County libraries by Brown County cardholders. About 14% of those checkouts were by rural cardholders. In addition, about 15% of Brown County cardholders are rural residents, yet about 6.6% of library funding comes from county taxes. So we've provided some supporting documentation. I crunched a couple of more numbers. In New Ulm, the population of New Ulm is 53% of the total Brown County population. But the funding for New Ulm is 67% of the total county funding. If you look at the rural tax district, their population is 21% of the total county population, and again, the funding for rural residents is about 6.5% of total funding. So we're just asking them to consider to support 5% above what they did the previous year, which again was 5% more than they had before. So we got a 5% increase for 2017. We're asking them to look at another 5% for next year. Get that more in line with the use of the rural residents. And my request to you is to consider joining us for that meeting. It's Monday, August 21st at 3:30 on the second floor of the county courthouse. It'll be a half an hour meeting.
3:30, you said?
3:30.
All right, and then before we get to the 2018 budget update, I'm gonna call another audible. We're gonna bounce back to number 1 on the statistics, because I know we published a number of charts and graphs in here, and I just wanted to give you the opportunity, if you want anything jumped out at us, to. I know you had mentioned that typically the summer months things slow down a little bit. But,
Things start slowing down in July, but July's our second highest circulation of the year
Okay.
because of the summer reading program. And it stayed pretty steady over 2016. I was pleased to see that Overdrive was about 100 more checkouts than the previous year. It's still really early to tell if our initiative and how we're changing purchasing is making a difference in circulation. I'm not ready to make any statements about that yet. But our computer use is up over last year, so I was pleased about that. And our year-to-date on user-full is up over a year ago as well.
So yeah, I didn't see anything that jumped out at me that was, it's pretty flat.
Yeah.
So that's good to see. All right, so now the final item on the Librarians Report then is the 2018 budget update.
And just a note that the city councilors met last month, right after this board met, and I did not hear anything that pertained to the library. It was mostly personnel, very large items. They're looking at changing some things in other departments, personnel-wise, but nothing library-related. And so I submitted the budget as you approved, and I anticipate that to be, I guess, to go through as expected. They're going to start discussions in September, and they do look at all of the departments at that point in time. And then it will be approved in December. but I'm not anticipating any changes.
Okay, so we won't really know for months yet then.
Right. I haven't heard anything from the finance director or the city manager, and I think I would have by now if there were any concerns from either of them.
All right, anything else then, Chris?
No?
All right, we'll move on then to the action items, which are starting on page 23. The first one is resolution number 2017-29, first reading and adoption of authorizing the city attorney to prepare extension of building sharing agreement with New Ulm Community Access TV, or NewCat. On June 12, 2008, the New Ulm Public Library Board adopted a proposal for redesign and use of library basement storage area as a community cable access office. This agreement was for a term of 3 years with an additional 3 years at the option of the New Ulm Community Access Television, NewCat. Further extensions must be approved by the New Ulm Public Library Board. At the May 11, 2017 Library Board meeting, the Library Board authorized the city attorney to prepare an extension of the building sharing agreement with NewCat that would be reviewed annually in August by the Library Board. The agreement would include a termination clause with a 60-day written notice by either party. The NewCat coordinator and library director discussed this arrangement with the Cable Commission, which requested a revised agreement of 3 years with a 120-day written termination clause by either party. This arrangement is acceptable to the NewCat coordinator and the library director. The library and NewCat have developed a long-standing and positive relationship that is mutually beneficial as well as valuable to the public. Therefore, the library board authorizes the city attorney to prepare a 3-year extension of the building sharing agreement with New Ulm Community Access Television at the current annual rate of space at $6.25 per square foot, plus 1.7% of the library's annual budgeted amount for utilities. Either party may terminate the agreement with a 120-day written notice. So, this is what we had discussed last month, and so I will entertain a motion to authorize the city attorney to prepare the extension of the building sharing agreement with New Ulm Community Access Television, NewCat.
So move.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
We got hung up on that last time. Let's not do
Yep.
it again.
Sounds good to me. All right, hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. Next item up, resolution number 2017-30, first reading and adoption, accepting the donation of bench. With the putting green ceasing operations of its mini golf site at 1915 South Valley Street, the area is being reclaimed by the city and all items are being auctioned by Putting Green and or removed by the city. A bench memorializing Bobby McRae and her daughters Abby and Savannah was located at the Putting Green entrance. Given Bobby's longtime efforts to promote Wandagog's contribution and support of the Wandagog House, it seemed appropriate to consider moving the bench to New Ulm Public Library, where it would become part of the landscape surrounding the Wandagog sculpture. The McRae family has agreed to this arrangement. Attached is documentation of the donation from Putting Green and a photograph of the stone bench, which is 66 inches long, 24 inches wide, and 26 inches tall. The New Ulm Public Library Board accepts the donation of the bench honoring Bobby McRae and her daughters, Abby and Savannah, with thanks to the donors. And there's a picture included in there. And Chris, you had mentioned it's heavy as heck.
It is very heavy, and I believe the email isn't here,
I
but
didn't see
there
that.
is an email from Tracy Vranich, the executive director of the Putting Green, authorizing it. I apologize.
I remember receiving the email, so I can vouch for that. So I will then entertain a motion to accept the donation of this bench.
So move.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Who actually owned that? Did Putting Green or did the McCray family?
Putting Green.
Putting Green. And
Putting
they-
Green Board approved transferring or donating the bench to the city.
Rather than,
But they received, okayed it with the McCray family. They wanted to honor the McCray family's wishes.
no, my question though is, they're auctioning everything else
Mm-hmm.
off. But this was just something they decided they didn't have to do then.
Correct.
Okay?
Any other further discussion? All right, hearing none, then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next item, resolution number 2017-31, first reading and adoption, approving 2017 summer reading program donations. Section 465.03 of Minnesota statutes, gift to municipalities states, any city, county, school district, or town may accept a grant or device of real or personal property and maintain such property for the benefit of its citizens in accordance with the terms prescribed by the donor. Nothing herein shall authorize such acceptance or use for religious or sectarian purposes. Every such acceptance shall be by resolution of the governing body adopted by a 2/3 majority, expressing such terms in full. The attached list describes donations received for the 2017 summer reading program. And there's quite a few things, but the total approximate value comes to just over $10,000. So I will entertain a motion to approve the 2017 summer reading program donations.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Is it a statutory requirement that you're compelled to read that statute each time we receive donations? Or could you read it once in January and then,
I can take it off. I just do a save as every time, and this is actually from Larry, from my predecessor. And so I've just never changed it, but I can take it off.
Yeah, we don't have to read through the whole thing. We can just mention that section 465.03.
Right.
I think if you just read it once a year, that would be plenty.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Sure, I can make that change.
good suggestion, Carl. Anything else?
Well, one question. The various donors on here, did you approach them at one time?
Yes,
Did you approach other places in the city and get turned down, or what?
I would have Jan speak specifically about the responses, but in January or February of every year, we send letters to businesses
You do?
around town.
Okay.
And some of these obviously responded positively. My experience from doing it a year ago was some just don't respond.
Just don't- Okay.
And then, did you end up utilizing all these then through the summer reading program?
Correct. There are some coupons left over, and Jan's been giving out some this month as well.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, next one, resolution number 2017-32, first reading and adoption, authorizing the creation of a strategic planning committee. The library director recommends that the library board create a strategic planning committee that will create a 5-year strategic plan for the New Ulm Public Library. Strategic plans are recommended for public libraries in order to set direction, establish priorities, and focus efforts. The library started the process by completing a library use assessment survey in the spring of 2017. The library directors recommend that, if created, the committee include the following. I'm assuming that's 2 to 3 library board members, up to 2 friends of the library board members, up to 2 community members, randomly selected based on expressed interest, the library director, assistant library director, 1 full-time library supervisor, and 1 part-time library staff member. The committee would meet every 1 to 2 weeks with a goal of completing the strategic plan by November 2017. So I have a question. So do we need to vote on creating subcommittees? Is that part of the rules and regs and bylaws, or?
My experience has been not necessarily voting on it, but discussing it here.
Okay.
Yes. And the last one that I can recall being created was an art subcommittee. And we did discuss the landscaping subcommittee. It was discussed here.
Okay. All right. So I will entertain a motion that would authorize the creation of a strategic planning committee.
So move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Well, that seemed really hesitant on both counts. So is there any further discussion?
When would when would you be starting on this?
Early September.
And you're gonna meet once every week to 2 weeks?
So twice a month, maybe 3 times a month.
And you're thinking like an hour at a time?
Right. Keeping it short for 2 months. I wanted, so 5 to 6 meetings total. And I'm looking at Ann over here because they just did a strategic plan. Does that sound a reasonable amount of time?
I think, yeah, it does. And
So-
are you going to use somebody to kind of facilitate that, or are you just going to go for it?
We're going to go for it ourselves.
Is there are we reinventing the wheel here, or is there some kind of a template we use? Has there been a plan in the past that we should review?
The library's last strategic plan was 2006, so I'll provide copies of that. But no, there are templates we don't have to reinvent things. And that would be something I would make available the week before the first meeting so that we're prepared to meet the first time and kind of set some direction.
Who would bear responsibility for appointing the members, or how would that process be triggered? Who is going to be actually on the committee?
My suggestion is you take volunteers from the 5 of you, or there are 4 of you not here.
That'll show up for.
I think they're going to be very sorry they didn't come to this meeting.
That would be for the library board members, but then for all the other members, I mean, is that just a voluntary kind of thing where you would ask your staff, who would want to do this?
I have already reached out to the staff and asked for anybody who's interested, and I've approached the Friends of the Library board members and said, be thinking about this, so I know there's interest there as well. I think it's great to have volunteers from all of those, and I think we can sort them out very quickly based on the response I've already heard. Now, it's the community members that I was basing my recommendation off of how they did the Renew project, which they asked for volunteers, and then they randomly drew names from all of those. So not everybody who expressed interest could serve because they had to keep it to a manageable number of people. But
So-
I thought we could put a sign up at the library. So these are people who are engaged with the library.
Good point. Okay. So do you feel that we'd be ready to go then at when you want to call the first meeting, in a month from now, I suppose?
Yes, I think we could be ready within 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
So you would coordinate gathering the members of the committee?
Yes.
And would the committee meet generally during normal staff work hours, or when do you envision the meetings to occur during the day?
I guess part of that will depend on everybody's schedule, but our budget can handle giving some extra hours to a part-time staffer to come in and work for that period of time. And then our full-time staff would be able to adjust their hours accordingly.
So you're saying this could be in the evening just as well as during the day?
Sure.
And do you think you would establish regular meetings so everybody knows ahead of time versus planning meetings at the meetings kind of thing?
That's a good idea. Not necessarily how I usually do things, but a very good idea. I mean, I should.
Because then that way people can put it on their calendar. If you do it every 2 weeks, let's meet. Can everybody do it on Tuesday nights at this time? And then
Yeah, and going back to the Renew Committee, that's how they set it up.
okay.
What about absenteeism?
Yeah.
Just play it by
Yeah.
I imagine you just play it by,
I'm sure not everybody can make every meeting.
Right.
That's
Right.
just how life works.
that's,
But,
But you have a big enough group that you can make up the difference.
and we'll be taking good notes and corresponding by email.
And then you've got this strategic plan completion goal of November 2017. Is there a particular reason why you chose that, or is it just you want to put a stake in the ground and you're not going to hit the goal if you don't set it, kind of thing?
Right, and I think January of 2018 is a great time to get started on the action items that we would set.
Does the strategic plan have to be adopted and approved by the board?
Yes.
So I assume then it'd be similar to what we do with other resolutions. It would bring forth the recommendations and then it'd be reviewed, discussed, and then maybe the first time just read through and then adopt it
That
the
sounds
second
good.
time.
I can certainly do that.
Are there public hearings involved in a strategic plan or
Not
not?
that I'm aware of.
Would you like there to be?
Do you want there to be?
Yeah, it's not like we're sequestering the committee.
No.
We can't.
Would it be open to the public, the meetings of the?
Oh, that's a good idea. I know the renew committees
I was
were.
going to say, the
Yeah.
renew committees were
Yeah.
Yeah.
public.
So they were announced?
They were announced, they were in the
Mhm.
paper, and there
Yeah.
was, I think they were even on TV, right?
I
think
believe
some
that's
of the-
correct.
I think they were,
Yes.
because I remember watching one.
probably one of the reasons it passed at 70%.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we wouldn't have
No.
to pass anything.
No, that's true.
We're not looking to go to
Right.
the state legislature
No.
for funding. And I would expect our meetings to be at the library.
Sure.
Yep. All right, good discussion. Anything further? All right, then, all in favor of authorizing the creation of a strategic planning committee, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. And the last item is resolution number 2017-33, first reading and adoption, authorizing the award of bid for elevator car replacement. At its meeting July 18th, 2017, the New Ulm City Council declined to approve the replacement of City Hall's elevator car because of the cost at $7,684 for a purely cosmetic change. The library board had indicated it wanted this information before deciding whether to authorize replacement of the library's main building elevator car. The low bid for the library elevator's car replacement was from MEI, Minnesota Elevator, at $79.75. That's $7,975. As with the City Hall elevator, this is a cosmetic change and does not affect the elevator's operation. The elevator in the main library building is the same generation as the City Hall's elevator, and mechanical upgrade was approved by the library board at its July 13, 2017 meeting. The board building official is obtaining bids for elevator electrical updates and will present them when they are available. The finance director has indicated that funding for this project will come from Fund 290 Capital Improvement Fund. The elevator car can be replaced now or at a future date, and that will not affect the mechanical or electrical upgrades that are scheduled in 2017. So I will entertain a motion for authorizing the award of the bid for elevator car replacement.
So moved.
I have a second. All right, not hearing a second. So I'll have a second attempt at a second. All right, so now what do? We have a discussion, I suppose we can, or,
When I made the motion, I don't want to go through with this either. I
okay.
thought we made that pretty clear last time.
That
the
was
city
my
doesn't-
impression as well. We were
The
gonna,
only question you got in the back of your head is it's easy to say, you don't do it now, you can always do it in the future. The only question you have is then in 2 years, all of a sudden, somebody comes back and says, nope, you gotta do it now. But if what I'm hearing and what I'm reading is that's not the case.
Right, and it's a cosmetic change, it's not, it doesn't affect the functionality of it. It is high-priced, and it was my impression, too, that we were pretty much gonna follow the lead of the, of City Hall.
Chris, you know better than I do. I have to use it every time when I'm gonna go up and down. How often is it used a day? Is it used quite often?
Yes,
Okay.
used quite
And has
often.
anybody ever said there's any problem with it?
Yes, but that's not with the car, with the,
Size,
not with the size.
not with the size.
No.
With the
It's
function,
Mechanics.
The
mechanics, yeah. So nobody says it's
Mechanic.
ugly.
Okay.
You
Mechanics
can
are
put a
gonna be
picture
good.
up.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, that's how elevators work. We have to call for repairs once in a blue
You
moon.
bet.
It hasn't
Yeah.
happened for quite a while. But what they're saying, obviously, we talked about this last month, it's
Right.
the mechanical piece needs to be replaced.
Yeah, and then it sounds like they're looking at replacing the electrical part as well. That
Yes.
will be coming in future.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, this is strictly a cosmetic deal.
Yeah.
I do have a resolution prepared that you would decline to authorize the award if that's the direction you want to go.
Okay, or,
Would we have to decline the
yeah,
authorize?
Yes.
Simply
We're
just
not
don't
gonna-
authorize it.
Yes,
Or-
please.
Yeah.
I do want us to be on record.
Yes.
Decline.
but wouldn't a nay vote on this authorization be the same as a decline?
Yeah.
Or lack of.
Lack of a second.
Right, lack of a
kills the
second,
motion.
right.
Second
which
does
would-
the same thing.
Okay,
But does that keep it on then each month when you do that?
No.
Okay.
yeah, we
I
don't want
wouldn't think
to
we
go
need to
into this
vote
every
not
month.
to do it,
Absolutely.
since we're not voting to do it.
I mean, if I remember right, everybody,
We voted
we
not
were
to
all
do it.
100% in
Right.
favor of this last time
Yep.
is if the city replaces theirs, we'll do ours, and if not, we won't.
Right,
We approved the mechanical repair, we're just not approving the car, so I
Right.
don't,
right.
it seems to me self-explanatory that
Okay.
we're not.
All right, so
Authorize.
based on that, then the fact that we're lacking a second, then that pretty much indicates that we are not authorizing the award of the bid to upgrade the car. All right, that concludes the resolutions. Any other business, Chris?
No, thank you.
All right, then, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
That's
I made a comment